Hey, so in this video, I want to show you an AI system to create Facebook ads using n8n and Airtable. So I'm going to walk you through this system inside of n8n. And the way that it works in Airtable is you just submit a new request with a product name and a product URL. And what's going to happen is our system is going to generate some brand guidelines like a target audience and their main pain point. Now, what you're going to do inside of Airtable is just hit a button to generate ad copy. And then in the next tab, what you're going to see is a whole bunch of ad copy for that specific product. You can come in here and edit this. And when you're happy with the ad copy, the next step is you can come under this generate image prompt and hit another check box. And what that's going to do in our next tab is generate a bunch of image prompts to create images for your Facebook ads. And again, you can come in here and edit these prompts. Once you're happy with the prompts, you just come over here into the generate image column and check that box. And then what happens after that is our tool gets to work and starts generating these images for your Facebook ads automatically. So this entire system starts with just two inputs from you. You click a couple of buttons, and what you're going to get back are some images for your Facebook ads, as well as some ad copy as well. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build this out inside of n8n, and I'm going to show you how to build it out inside of Airtable as well. Not only that, if you want access to these templates for free, there's a link below to my free school community. So you just click that link, and again, you can join for free. Right now, there's 1,800 AI automators inside. We've got a thriving community. And not only that, you can come into the classroom here and you will find all of my YouTube videos here. And then below the video, you will find the template for n8n. And if there's another template in this example, there's also an Airtable link as well. So again, hop into that link below this video and join the school community for free. All right, so let me show you a demo of this system in action, and then I'll walk you through n8n and Airtable. So let's use an example here of this pet product. It's this dog dental powder. So these guys run a ton of Facebook ads. So inside of Airtable, I'm just going to bring in the product name, and then I'm going to bring in the product URL, and then I'm going to click run, and then I'm going to click create. Now that's going to send this off inside of n8n. So my workflow is actually active right now, so we can't see it updating in real time. But what's going on is we're going to send that to Perplexity to do some brand research, and you can see it just finished up already. So now we've got our dental powder down here. We've got the target audience, and we've got the pain point. Now, again, you can come in here if you want and edit these fields. But what I want to do is just click on this generate ad copy button next. And what that's going to kick off is the next leg in our automation. And you can see it's running over here, and that's going to come down here. And again, we're using those brand guidelines, the pain points, to generate some Facebook ad drafts using using AI. And what's going to happen when this completes is we're going to come into our ad copy. So this is all the AG1 stuff down here. And so when it finishes up, so it just finished up, we should see it come in our ad copy down here. So here we can see some of the Facebook ad text for the dog product. And again, this is just a simple ad. You can obviously prompt this to make the ad longer or however you want. But you can come in here and edit this. And this is just showing the headline and the primary text and the CTA. Let's just go with this startup, build up, getting worse example. What I'm going to do is click on this generate image prompt. And what that is going to do is kick off this leg of the automation, which is going to take that Facebook ad text as context, and it's going to generate a prompt to create an image for our next step. So we can see it's still running, and when it's done, it's going to pop into our image prompt. Oh, and it's there, you can see it's populating right now. So you can see under products, we've got the dog product over here. And here you can see the image prompts are coming in right now. So again, these prompts are to feed into the next step, which is going to generate the actual images for our ads. And again, you can come in here and you can tweak these prompts any way that you want. So I can come into one of these image prompts, and actually let's check a few of these off. So I can check off a couple at a time, and it's going to generate multiple images depending on how many I generate. And you can see it all updates to the running status. And now when I come into my images, it's going to take a minute for OpenAI to generate those images, but your final Facebook ad images will come into this image section over here. All right, so we can see these are finishing up now. 2 of the 3 have finished. So if we go into images, now these are for dogs, so I'm not sure how good these images are going to be, but We've got a vet approved ProBright, and ProBright is the name of the product there. And we've got the vet with, I think, the dog owner. This one's a little more dramatic, and the drama. Not sure I would use this one. And then we've got this dogs choose this. This is kind of cool with all the ProBright. Now, obviously, all of these are editable, the brand guidelines, the ad copy, and the image prompts. So you're going to want to tweak those. I didn't tweak any of them. But what you can see is the output is we've got our images and we've got our ad copy, all by just entering a product name, a product URL, and then just checking a couple of boxes in Airtable, and everything, again, runs automatically in the back end using n8n. All right, so for this video, I'm gonna click around in Airtable. I'm gonna explain the nodes in n8n, but if you wanna learn how to fully build this out from scratch with Airtable, step by step, I really recommend watching this video here, this TikTok AI agent video. I'm going to try to remember to tag it above because this goes through the full process of setting up Airtable. It's an hour-long video. I'm not going to add an extra hour to this video just by repeating myself. So if you want the foundations for building systems in Airtable and I highly recommend starting with this video before I get into the breakdown with this one right now. All right, so I'm going to bounce between Airtable and n8n, kind of explaining what's going on. But you do need an Airtable database, and I have 4 different tables. Now, the first table that I have is going to collect the product name and the product URL from the user. I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so we need these columns over here. And then we have separate columns for target audience, pain point, and solution. And we're using AI to pull in this information. You can obviously change these fields to whatever you want it to be. So again, we're going to have AI do that research and then pump the results back into Airtable. And then I have a checkbox here for generate ad copy, although truthfully, you could hide this field. Same with this one over here. We're just going to show this in the Airtable interface. The second one over here is an ad copy status. So when this kicks off, right, when the user checks the box, this is going to show running. And then when it finishes, it's going to show completed. So this is just a checkbox here with 2 options, running and completed. So that's the first table. Now, this corresponds, I'm going to go into n8n right now. This corresponds to this first part of our n8n workflow, which is to generate the problem and solution, right? Which is this target audience, pain point, and solution. And so what we're doing here is we're starting this part of the workflow with a webhook. So the way that this works is that in our interface, after the user has submitted the product name and the product URL, and then they click on this run button, and then they have to hit the create form. But when they click on that run button, that's going to kick off this webhook inside of n8n. So just coming into Airtable over here. So now I'm in the Airtable automations, and this is kind of where the webhook is talking to n8n. Again, if you have not watched this video right here and you might be a little confused, definitely watch that video first. But back inside of our automations, so this is going to trigger, again, this is the webhook that's being sent to here inside of n8n. So I have when a record matches a condition. So the table is products, which is this table. And the condition is when run is checked. So I'm sorry, I had that run field hidden before, but this is another column inside of the products table. So I've got this run column, and this is actually what triggers the brand research. So when that column is checked, what's going to happen in the next step is we are going to run just a little script to hit the n8n webhook. So for record ID, I'm just using the Airtable record ID, and this is where you paste in your webhook from n8n. So when I open up this webhook, so there's 2 ways to do this. If you're just in a testing environment, you can use the test URL when your workflow is turned off. But when you turn your workflow on and you want it to run in real time, you use the production URL and you paste your webhook into here. Now we've got this little script here that I got from ChatGPT, this little bit of code right here. So you can either screenshot this, or again, this template is going to be available in my community. So this is the code that is going to trigger the webhook once this checkbox is running. So again, when this run box is checked, either in the data field or inside of our interface, Airtable is going to send the webhook request to n8n, and that's going to kick off this part of the automation. Now, in terms of the Airtable interface, and again, I'm not going to walk through Airtable step by step. Please watch that previous video. What we're going to do is set up a new interface, and we have these pages over here. So the first page that I have, when you click add page to interface, you'll get these options. So the first page that I have is a form. So that's what this new request page is. So this is a simple form. And what it's doing is it's pulling in just a few of the columns from my products table, right? So you can see I've got the product name, I've got the product URL, which are these two fields, and then I've got the run checkbox. So when I click into here, you can see I have fields, and then those three are the three visible fields. So the user is now able to interact with this on the front end by entering a product name, entering a product URL, and then clicking run. So that's all this is in the interface, is a simple form. Now, let me just walk through what we're doing in n8n with this top row, which is, again, is the generate problem solution when someone submits this form. So I'm going to go into my executions to show you what ran. So again, that's the webhook that's triggered by the Airtable automation. And then what we have next in Airtable is a get record node. So from the webhook, we're just grabbing this record ID, okay? And again, for Airtable, the operation is get record. And so I'm just dragging this record ID into the record ID field here. And when I click on execute step, what it's gonna pull in is the information from that Airtable table. So we've got the product name, we've got the product URL, and we've got the record ID. So what we're going to do next is pass the URL into Perplexity. So again, what we're going to do is to research the product. If you go back to the brand guidelines over here, so these are the results, you can see we've got this target audience and pain point. So we're asking Perplexity to go out and research this product for us. So when I go back into n8n, that's what this node is over here. So this is a Perplexity node. It's a message, a model. And for the model, I chose Sonar. And I'm going to open up my prompt right here. And again, you can grab this prompt inside the template, but I'm basically going to feed it the URL of the product, right? So in this example, it was this dog dental product. And I'm basically saying, hey, generate the target audience, generate the pain point, generate the solution, and then output it as plain text only. So we're using Perplexity to kind of do the brand research into the product and the audience. Now, once Perplexity is done, what I'm using here is a code node. And the reason that I want to use a code node is because I needed the response from Perplexity to be broken up into 3 specific items that I can pump into Airtable. So this is just taking the response from Perplexity, which is this one big paragraph, and it's going to pump it into a target audience, pain point, and solution output. Again, I need those 3 separate fields to pump into Airtable. But now for that dog product, you can see I've got target audience, I've got pain point, and I've got solution. Now, going back into n8n, after that code node, I'm adding another Airtable node here, and this is just to update the record. So we've got our table over here, and we need to now update this table with that information. And so you can see in the values to update, I update on the record ID from the previous Airtable step, and then what I'm dragging in is the target audience, the pain point, and the solution from the code node. Don't worry about this generate ad copy field. That must have been during my testing. I'm not sure why that's on. But what I'm dragging in, again, is from the code node. It's just these 3 elements over here. So now when we go back into Airtable, again, the product name and the product URL are coming from when the user submits the form. And now the audience, the pain point, and the solution are coming from n8n in this update record node. All right, so that's the first part of n8n, and that is the first part of our Airtable interface. Now, when we go back into the interface here, you can see I have a new page here. So this is called brand guidelines. And again, when you add a new page here, this page is a list in Airtable. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm pulling in the information from the products table, okay? And what this is showing, again, this is gonna pull in the product name, the product URL, that came from the user, the target audience, and the pain point. I'm not sure why I don't have solution showing here, but we can show that as well. Let me just unhide solution, and then let me just drag it over there. I had that hidden. So it's dragging in the target audience, the pain point, and the solution. And now I'm also showing this generate ad copy button, and I'm showing this add copy status button. Again, these fields are in the product table over here, but these are the fields that I'm viewing inside of the interface. So let me just publish that and show you. So this is what the user is going to see, right? So this new request gets submitted. We hit run. So that data gets pumped into this table, which is the products table. And now when they go into brand guidelines, I'm just showing them that products table view. So we've got the name, we've got the URL. And then for target audience, pain point, and solution, these are all editable fields, which you can do in the interface in case the user wants to change this, because we're going to be using this information in the next step to generate the ad copy. So it's important that the end user is able to change this. And again, we've got our generate ad copy and we've got our ad copy status field showing for two reasons. So number one, the user, when they click that button, that's going to trigger the next step in n8n, which I'll show you. In the status, this should not be editable, by the way. Let me try to edit this real quick. But the status is obviously just showing them what's the status of the ads after they click this button. So to change the ability for the user to edit these fields or really click into them. So first, when you click into the table overall, you can see the whole table is highlighted. You want to click on edit records inline, but then what you can do is change these step by step or kind of field by field. So if I hover over product name and click into it, you can see edit this column inline is turned off. So you can change it on a column per column basis. So let's say for ad status, they don't need to be able to click in and change that. I can click add copy status. I can turn that off, I can hit publish, and now they're not able to actually change this, they're only able to view it. But that's what this view is gonna look like inside of the interface. All right, let's talk about the second table in Airtable, okay? So this is called ad copy. And so again, once the user ticks off that box to generate the ad copy, we're gonna pump it into a new table. So my columns here, again, grab the template inside of school. I've got full ad copy, and then we're breaking it up into headline, primary text, and CTA. You don't have to have all of these in the table if you don't want. You can just have the full ad copy. Then we're using a link to another record field. So it's linking back to the product name, so we know which product is associated with which ad copy. So this is a related field here. And then we've got, again, the same thing. We've got a checkbox here. So this is to generate the image prompt. So the user will be able to interact with this back in the interface. And then we've got the image prompt status, same thing. This is a multi-select. We've got running and we've got completed. And again, the user is gonna be able to see this on the front end in the interface so they can know the status of their ads. And then back in our Airtable interface, you can see I have a new page here called ad copy. And again, this is also a grid. So we're just displaying the full ad copy. This is a editable field. Again, you don't have to go overboard. You don't have to have the headline, the text, and the CTA in there. You'll see in n8n how we're breaking that up. You don't have to display that if you don't want to. Then we've got the product that it's associated with. And again, I should change this to not make it editable. And then finally, we have our generate image prompt checkbox. So again, the user is able to check this box, and that's gonna fire off n8n webhook. And the last column is just that status. So it's displaying to the user after they check this box. It will go to running, and then when it's done, it'll change to completed, and I'll show you that inside of n8n. All right, so let's talk about how this ad copy is actually generated inside of n8n. So you can see it's this second workflow here, and what we're doing in Airtable is we're doing a separate automation. So it's this automation here, and the trigger is gonna be when a record matches a condition. And so for the table, the configuration is products for the table, and the condition is when generate ad copy is checked. So again, going back to products, when the user clicks on generate ad copy, that's going to kick off this automation. Now, when that box is checked, again, we need to do the same thing we did previously, which is we want to run the script to send the webhook to n8n, okay? So the record ID is just set to Airtable record ID, and then the webhook is going to come from our second webhook over here, right? So this is another webhook. So I've copied this and I've pasted it in here, although I have the production version, not the test version. So that's the webhook. We'll talk about that in n8n. And again, the script is very similar to what I had before. So again, when the user checks off the button to generate the ad copy, that's going to trigger this, and that's going to connect to n8n with this webhook. So in n8n, if I come into this execution, so this is a separate flow altogether. You can see it's not connected to the flow above. You could have this in a separate workbook if you wanted to, but this is its own standalone webhook, right? So that's going to kick off when Airtable calls it. So what are we doing next? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to update a record in Airtable. And the record that we want to update is actually from the products table, and it's going to be this column right here, right? So when someone clicks generate ad copy, we need to set this column to running. And that's what we're doing in this first step after the webhook. So we've got an update record here. We're matching the value to the ID in products. And then the only thing that I'm updating here is the ad copy status. So I'm updating that to running. So what that's going to do is it's going to change this column to running. And then also for the user, when they check this box for the first time, this status is then going to show running on the front end. All right, so after we've updated the status with this, we need to start thinking about how we're going to generate the ad copy. And again, what we're going to use is the information that Perplexity generated. We're going to pump that into an AI writer to come up with the scripts, and then pump those scripts back into Airtable. Now, in order to do that, what we first need is another Airtable record. This is going to be a get a record node. And again, we're going to pull from the products table, because what we want and what we want to provide as context for our AI writer is this information right here about the brand. And so again, we're just getting a record here. And for the record ID, I'm just grabbing it from the webhook from the previous step. And so you can see when I do that and when I execute this in the output, I'm going to get the information on that record, including the audience, the pain point, and the solution that I can pass into the next node. So after you have that Airtable node set up, what I'm adding here is an LLM chain. So in your node library, you can just search for LLM chain or an LLM node, and you're going to get something that looks like this. So when you open this up, you do need to configure this. So the first thing that you need to change here is the source for the prompt. This defaults to a user message, but in this dropdown, you can select the dropdown and you can select define below. So you'll want to change that. And what we're going to do, again, is we're going to pump in the information about the target audience and the product name and the pain point and all that stuff to provide it as context for the LLM. So you can see in my user message, if I open this up, I'm just saying, hey, here's the product name, audience, pain point, and solution. And I'm dragging in the fields from Airtable as an expression. And then under that, using this information, generate ads as specified, right? And what that's going to do is it's going to use the system prompt, right? So below here, and by the way, I do have require specific output format ticked on. I'll talk about that in a second, but we need to add a system prompt, okay? So in the dropdown, select system, and then our message here, and again, you can grab this from the template because I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm saying you're a direct response copywriter who specializes in Facebook ads. I'm asking for 10 ad variations. You can ask for as many as you want. And then I'm saying I want a headline, I want primary text, and I want a CTA. And again, you can change that depending on how you want your ad structured. I'm providing it a little bit more information, and I'm telling it how I want the output to be structured. Now, speaking of that, when you click out of this node, you're going to be prompted to select two things. So the first thing you need to do is select an AI model. What AI are you going to use? You can see I'm using Claude 4 Sonnet, but you can choose your model from this list. You can choose whatever you want. And then for structured output parser, this is going to help force the AI to respond in a specific way. So when I open this up, for schema type, I have generate from JSON example, and I had ChatGPT generate this example of how we want the output to be structured. And again, you can just grab this from the template, but when you look in my output from the JSON, you can see it matches pretty closely to the example I gave it. So we have our ads up here, and then I've got my headline, I've got my primary text, and then I've got my CTA. So that's the structured output parser, and that's the ad writer node. Now, going back in here, actually, when you look at the output, one thing you'll notice is that this is outputted as one item, but I'm asking for 10 ads, and I need to be able to pump in 10 new lines or 10 new rows into Airtable, and it's not going to work if I have it as one item. And so what I added after this was a little bit of code. And again, I had ChatGPT say, hey, I've got one item that contains 10 separate ads. Can you write a little bit of code that's going to separate those into 10 separate items? So that's what this code is. ChatGPT, again, wrote this entire thing. And now when I execute this node with the code, you can see what my output looks like now. So I've got 10 clean items. Each item has a headline, primary text, CTA, and a full ad. That's also what this code is doing. I forgot that. What I asked it to do, not only to separate it into 10 outputs, I asked it to combine the headline, primary text, and CTA for each ad, and then generate a new field called full ad. So then I can include this field again in Airtable. So it's combining the headline, the text, and the CTA into a new field, and it's doing it for each of the 10 ads. All right, so what we want to do next is then create a new record in Airtable with that information, right? With those ads. And so after the code node, I've got an Airtable node here. So this is create a record, and we're going to create this record in the ad copy table. So now we're moving on to the ad copy table, and this is how this is being fulfilled over here, right? So you can see the values that I'm sending. I've got the full ad copy. Let me go into schema here. So this is the full ad copy. That's that field here. So then I've got headline, primary text, and CTA are all coming from this full ad node. And then what I want to do is I want to associate each ad with the product, right? Because again, when the user submits the form, there's going to be different products, different brands. So we want the ads associated with the product from Airtable. And so you can see in the product column, I have this expression that frankly, again, I had ChatGPT generate this specifically. It took a few minutes to figure it out. But what it's doing is it's pulling in from this Airtable node over here, and it's pulling in the record ID. We just have it structured as an array in order to get it to work with Airtable because it's a linked record. Again, it took me a few minutes with ChatGPT to figure out how to structure this. But again, take a screenshot or grab the template to make sure that the product actually comes in as well. And then finally, our last step for this part is to update the status, right? So again, I'm going to add a new Airtable node. This is going to be an update record node. And the field that we want to update is that ad copy status. But this is, again, coming from the products table. So we're back in products. Now remember, when the user clicks generate ad copy, at the beginning, we have it set to running, but now once the ads are completed and the ads are in Airtable, we need to change that status so the user can see it come in as completed. That's what this update record node is doing. Again, the table is products. The column to match on is ID, and the only thing that we need to update is the ad copy status column. And again, in the dropdown, just change that to completed. All right, so we're halfway through n8n, but let me just illustrate with another example. I thought it might be helpful, right? So we've got this Ridge suitcase, okay? So again, this is the user form. We need the URL they need to enter, and they need to enter the product name. which I guess is just Ridge Carry On, right? So the user's entering this on the front end. Now, again, when this run button gets clicked, let me go back into products. That's this checkbox over here, and that's going to trigger the n8n webhook over here, right? So when I click run, that actually is doing it right now. Now the user needs to hit create in order to submit the request, and then we're going to click into the next sheet. But you'll see how quickly that n8n flow runs. So again, what we're doing is we're passing in the URL to Perplexity. It's going to use our prompt to generate the audience, the pain point, and the solution. And then you can see that come in right there. So again, that's this part of the workflow. It's getting the record ID from Airtable, which includes the brand name and the brand URL. Perplexity's doing that work. We're using a little code to clean it up. And then we're going to write those three files or those three columns rather back to Airtable. And then for the second part of n8n, again, the generate ad copy. So again, the user is now in these brand guidelines that they're going to review, and they can click this generate ad copy button, which corresponds with this button right here. Now, when they click that, it's going to kick off this webhook, which we already discussed. We're going to update the record to show that it's now running. Then we're going to get the record, and then we're going to send that information to Claude to write all of the ads, right? So again, inside of the dashboard, once I'm happy with the target audience and the pain and the solution, I can just click on generate ad copy, and now Airtable's sending that webhook to n8n. It's updating the ad copy status to running. That's what this is doing. Then we're getting the record from Airtable, and we're going to pass that into this writer, which is now, I think, writing 10 different ads right now. And when that's done, well, it looks like it is done. We're going to go into ad copy. And if we scroll down, we can see, because we have the product linked, that we've got all of the Ridge items down here. And here are all of the ads that it just wrote. So again, now that the ad copy is generated, what the user will be able to do next is generate the prompts to create the images. So let's go into Airtable and look at what that table looks like, right? The image prompts. So these are where the prompts are going to be sent. So this is a new table. It's called image prompts. And again, you can just look at my fields. I've got image prompt as the main field. So AI will be generating this and pumping it into here. And then my next two fields are both linked to another record. So I have products and ad copy. So this column is linking back to the products table, and this column is linking back to the ad copy table. Again, this is so we can keep track of, which image prompt belongs to what. Then the next column, I have another checkbox, which is going to say generate images. So we're going to use that later on. And then I have another column called image status, which is going to be used, again, after the user clicks on generate images. You don't need to show your record ID like I have right there. And so that's what the columns look like in the image prompts. And going into the interface, again, it's the exact same thing. This page is a grid, and I'm just showing the specific fields for the front end user, the image prompt, the products, the ad copy, the generate image checkbox, and the image status. But how do we actually get the image prompts, right? So the user has to click that button, but what happens when they click that button? And that is the third n8n flow here. So let me just go into the execution for this flow. So again, these all start with webhooks. So this webhook, again, going back into Airtable and under automations. So it's this one, generate image prompts. Right? So this is, the trigger is when a record matches a condition. So the table that we're linking back to, or the table that's going to trigger this rather, is the ad copy table. So it's this table. Remember, the person has to come into, or effectively come into this table through the interface. And for the column, generate image prompt. So the table is ad copy, and the condition is when generate image prompt, that column is checked, right? That will kick it off, right? So what happens when that is set? Then we run that same exact script. So again, you link the Airtable record ID. The webhook is going to come from n8n, and then the script is effectively the same thing. So once that is set and once that is turned on, what will happen is that when a user clicks on the generate image prompt, it's going to start off this flow with this webhook. All right, so once this webhook is generated, what are we building after that? Well, it's very similar to what we were doing before. So we want to update a record first, because what we are going to update is that image prompt status. So again, for the user, when they click generate image prompt, we want it to show, hey, it's running, right? So that's what this step is doing. Again, it's very similar to the step before. So the table is add copy, the ID is the record ID, and the only column that I'm changing in Airtable is the image prompt status is going to change to running. So that's that update record node. And then this is effectively the same path as the one before, so I'm going to go through it a little faster. The next node, we want to get a record, but we want to get it from the add copy table, because again, we're going to use this add copy to help inform the prompt. So we want to get this information into our AI node. So we're pulling from the add copy table, which is coming from the webhook in the first step. And again, we just need that record ID. And once we pass in the record ID and execute it, you can see we've got our full add copy here. Then we're going to pass that add copy to a different LLM chain. So this is basically the exact same thing as this. So I'm not going to go over the chat model or the structured output, but I'll open up the node and I'll show you the prompts. But it's very similar. So I'm passing in the full add as context. And just to take half a step back, what we're doing, again, we want to eventually generate AI images for our ads. But before that, we need prompts. So we're generating prompts here, and we're generating those prompts based on the ad copy itself. So I'm pulling in the full ad copy from Airtable as the context, okay? And then for the system prompt, again, grab this from the template. So I'm saying you're an AI art director, and what you're gonna do is read the full ad, and then you're gonna generate, I don't know how many ads I asked for, I think 10 different prompts here. So I'm asking for 10 prompts, 10 AI Facebook ad image prompts. So that's what this system prompt is doing. And you can see when this is executed, the output over here. Again, it's coming in as one item, but these are 10 different prompts that we can pass into an AI image generator. Then we've got the code node, same as before. So we're going to take those 10 prompts and we're going to output them as 10 separate items. And then we're going to take those 10 image prompts that we have now and create new records in Airtable. This time we're going to put them in the image prompt table. And what we're going to pass in is the image prompt from that code node. Now, again, we also want to match the products and the ad copy to that linked record. And so what I'm doing is I'm grabbing that here from the second Airtable row, or the second Airtable node. I'm passing in the product and I'm passing in the ad copy. So it updates and it keeps those in sync. Then finally, what I'm doing is, again, the same thing that we did before, is I need to update this status. So before it was running, and now we need to change that to completed. So again, this is in the ad copy table, and the column that we need to update is that image prompt status. So it's going to change from running to completed. So that's what this Airtable node is doing over here, just updating that column. So that is the third part of this automation. All right, so let's talk about the last table, because once the user clicks on generate image, that's going to kick off the final webhook and n8n, and we're going to send all of that data to the final table, which is titled images. So you could probably set this up a little bit differently than me, but I'm choosing to host my image. So my first column is an image URL. I'll talk about that in a second. And then my second column is an attachment, and then we're going to pump the actual image in there. We don't need record ID, or we don't need to show it here. And then these last three columns, again, they're all related fields. So we're linking back to the image prompt, we're linking back to the product, and we are linking back to the ad copy tables. Now, inside of the user interface, what you're going to see for images is something different. So what I did here is, let me actually come back to edit this so I can edit the pages. Now, when you add a new page here, what you want to choose is not a list, but you want to choose a gallery. So again, this is a visualize image heavy records. So this final one here is a gallery. Now, the way that I have it set up is if we kind of just click in here for a second, the aspect ratio I have as square, but you can play around with this if you want. I liked it at square. I have fit image size on. You can turn it off to zoom in a little bit more. It might look a little bit better that way. The title field I just have as the image URL. It doesn't look great, and honestly, if I had more time, I would have probably cleaned this up to make that look a little bit better. Right now, it's just displaying this image URL because there's no way to display these related fields in here, or at least that I could figure out. So for right now, we're just displaying that image URL. Now under fields, you'll notice that it actually says that 0 are visible, but that's technically true. But what it's doing is it is showing the image, but it's not as the field, right? So if I click image and try to show this field, what this means is it's going to show it in kind of in this bottom row. So if I put on add copy, right, it would show it below the title. I don't want that, so that's why those are turned off. But it is pumping in the image itself in here. So again, let me just publish this. So when the end user comes in, they can look at all of their ads like this, and they can open them up and download them from here. But that is the setup in terms of the interface. So in n8n, we have the webhook. And so again, that is going to kick off one last time with an Airtable automation. I think you guys get the idea. So we're kicking it off when a record matches a condition. So the table is in image prompt. So when the user hits that check mark to generate the image, what it's going to do is run this script. So again, Airtable record ID, we've got the webhook from n8n, and it's the same script. So that is going to fire off to this webhook. So let me try to pull that one up inside of the executions. All right, so here we go here. So that's the webhook that kicks it off. And what we're going to do now is we're going to update the record. I mean, this is a very similar flow. So again, I'm going to go through this somewhat quickly. We're going to update image status to running. So this is the image prompt table, and we're just using the ID to match. So we want to update this status when this is checked to running. So that's what that Airtable node is doing. And then again, we're going to get the record from the webhook node to pull in the actual prompt for the image. Okay, so that's get a record. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the OpenAI image generation node. So this is an HTTP request, and I actually have this pulled up as a screenshot. If I click into this in the execution, it's going to reveal my key, and I'm not about to blur it out. All right, so here is what the node looks like. Again, this is an HTTP request node in n8n. We've got the post method here. You can see the URL that we're sending it to, the OpenAI version 1 image generations. I'm authenticating in my header. So for specify headers, I've got the name as authorization, and below where I've got it blurred out is where you want to post in your API key. Now, in the second screenshot, I show the rest of it. So we want to send the body, and then for body content type, I've got JSON, and then specify body, I have using fields below. So we are sending in a couple of things here. So first, we have got the name, which is model. Then we have the value, which is GPT-image.1. And then we're passing in the prompt. So the next body parameter name is prompt. And then the value, you can see I'm dragging in this image prompt field right here as an expression. So it's going to take the prompts that were created and pull it in from Airtable. And then finally, I specified the size for Facebook for a square image. So the last body parameter name is size. And then the value I have 1024 times 1024. So when you execute that node, what you're going to see if you do run it is a gigantic string, this B64 JSON. It's going to look something like this when you're looking at it in the JSON. So what we need to do is convert that to a file. So this next node, if you go into n8n and just search for convert to file, so what we're going to do is take the file from the HTTP request and convert it. So the operation is move base64 to string. The base64 output field is this right here. It's this B64 JSON. And for put output file in field, I have this as data to match this. And now when you execute this node, you should get something that looks like this, where you can actually view the image. So there's the dog image that we generated earlier. So that's the convert to file node. Now for this step here, I'm deciding to host my images externally. I find it's easier to get it into Airtable. So I'm using something called ImageKit. This is just an API, or you can use the API to host your images and then fetch your images. I'm on the free plan. You can get a decent amount of storage, so you can sign up in your own time. But what I'm going to do is need to grab your API key, and you can grab it in your developer options, because in the next step inside of n8n, we're going to host our image in here. So this is another HTTP request node. And let me just show you how I have it set up here. So the method is post. Here is the ImageKit URL. For authentication, I'm using basic auth, and then I've got my auth already signed up in through n8n. So you're gonna have to connect your ImageKit account if you choose to host it this way. And then for the body parameters, this is what we need to send here. So for the body content type, it is form data. And then for the body parameters, for the first parameter type is form data. The name is file name. And then the value I just have is my file name .jpg. And then for the next parameter name, it's going to be n8n binary file. The name is file. And then the input data field name is data, which is coming from over here. Now, when you execute this, what this is going to do is host your image in ImageKit. So I can grab this URL, paste it into my Chrome, and now you can see my image that was generated by OpenAI is now hosted inside of ImageKit. And it's just going to make it a little bit easier to pump inside of Airtable. And also, if you want to be able to access these images later on or pump them into a Google Sheet, it's just nice to have a URL instead of dealing with a file from n8n. All right, now that you have your image URL, we're going to follow these last two steps, which again are the same as before. So we're going to create a record with the images in our image table inside of Airtable. So again, we've got our image URL, we've got the image, and then we're just kind of linking up the prompts, the product, and the ad copy from the previous table. So coming back into n8n, I'm in the table list. And then so for the image URL, I'm sending this in from the ImageKit URL. And I'm also doing the same thing for the image field, which is an attachment. Again, I'm grabbing it from ImageKit. I'm just wrapping it in an array, but it's the same field from ImageKit. And then again, I'm pulling in a related field for image prompts, product, and ad copy. And I'm grabbing those from the second Airtable node down here. And I'm just wrapping those in an array as well, so it plays nice with Airtable. Now, when you execute that step, it's going to create that new record inside of Airtable with that information. And then finally, our last step, remember, we need to update the status of the image prompt. So that's what this field is, or that's what this node is doing. I'm in the image prompt table, and what we're updating here is the image status column. So again, now the user will see completed when the images finally finish generating. So that is the n8n flow. I know I went through it somewhat quickly. Again, I highly recommend you watch this TikTok AI agent video to get kind of the full flow for how these systems work. But just to keep going or leave off from our Ridge example, right? So we left off, I think, in the ad copy table. So if we find some of these Ridge ad copy, again, you can tweak this if you want, but all I need to do is click on Generate Image Prompt. You can see the status automatically updates to running. And then once that finishes up, I'm going to be able to go into the image prompt table and check out the prompts in there. Right, so it says it has completed. Again, I can just come down here. So and I can easily see it because it's connected to that related field. So I can see these are the Ridge prompts. It also connects it to the ad copy itself, so I can see what the prompt is based on here. So here are my image prompts. Again, I can tweak this if I want, but I can just click on Generate Image. So now it's going to send it over to that final n8n node. It's going to tell me that the status is running, and then once it's complete, it's going to send that Ridge ad, that image, into my table over here. All right, so we can see that image is starting to come in right now, and there is the finished one. I didn't even look at the prompt or the ad copy, but it's never break. There's the image of a suitcase and I think a baggage handler about to catch the suitcase. But you can see the ad has come in. All right, so that's going to do it for this video. Let me just finish by saying this is meant to be used kind of as a framework or as a template that you can build upon. There's a lot more that you can do with this. You can provide the AI with maybe some source images, work on the prompting, work on the image prompting as well to get better results. But to get started as a framework, I think this is a really good spot. And I did hope you enjoy this video. If you did, do me a favor, give me a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below. It really helps me out. I'll see you in the next video.